and everybody, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. This is a just a brief agenda of what we'll be covering. We've scheduled an hour. I don't know if it's going to take that long, but we're going to focus on the what's new primarily, in a sense that they really add a lot of value to VantagePoint in this release in regards to just the functionality that they have. With that said, we're going to then get into some of the enhancements that we've done to the system in the areas of autosave, list cleanup, and so forth. So as we go through this agenda, just keep that in mind. I'll be demonstrating these new elements and so forth. So let's go. So what's new? First of all, it's important to realize just how useful these profile tables are going to be. Uh, those of you who are veterans to VantagePoint, you are probably familiar with super profiles. They're a little, they're useful, but a little complicated to build, and so forth. And we've really made an effort to bring flexibility to your reporting, and it's with the thinking of information repeatedly coming out of like alerts, monitoring your competitors. Once you've just taken an alert and uploaded it into VantagePoint, you can quickly build these profiles. So they're going to be useful in a lot of ways in terms of just streamlining your reporting capability. The next item is enhancements to these categorization or classification, auto classification function within VantagePoint. Here we really think in terms of the analyst. They understand their domain. The companies are all different. The lexicon is all different. Their audiences are different. So the classifications basically are adapted to fit the environment that they're in. And so they're able to transfer their knowledge to the analysis and apply the auto classification. So we'll get into this new sub-categorization functionality. We're excited to be sharing with you our new custom trained named entity recognition function. Discover new information in your data set by really training off of a list of known entities that you have. And we'll be demonstrating that briefly. It's very useful to think in terms of I have found this data with my searching out there. In our case, we're demonstrating using PatBase, but whatever source, and it's quite literal, the keywords and so forth. But when you pull that into the system, into VantagePoint, and apply named entity recognition using certain terms to train the system with, the system will basically find related terms through the principles that are involved in named entity recognition. And then lastly, just real quick, we've heard you in terms of being able to track what you do through your analysis, and we've started that path going into allowing to record field history. So we'll be demonstrating that as well. So real quick, the flexibility of the profile tables and allowing you to report on your competitive and technical analysis in a reproducible and repetitive way is what these tables are all about. This is an example. I'll be building this in a minute, but it's basically a profile of, in the first column, in this case, companies, and then how do they compare based on elements in the columns that are following. So how do they compare in terms of trending? How do they compare in terms of their country filings? How do they compare with regard to the classifications that they operate in the area of IPCs? And then also unexpected IPCs and unique IPCs as they compare to each other. So these are exportable to Excel, and they're quite handy in terms of being able to reproduce your analysis. So I'm just going to toggle over to VantagePoint. And for those of you who are new to this system, this is the summary sheet, which is in essence the import of data from PatBase. There's 3,184 records in this data, and they all are then broken into constituent fields. Their abstracts, their date information, and so forth as I just scroll down this list. And so we'll be building this profile table from elements within this data. Um, Up at the top here, you'll notice the tabs, and the user, the analyst, will go to the report tab, and they'll go and find the profile tables. And they open that up. They can quickly use the template, as for example, if I go into the herbicide 2, and by the way, this is herbicide data. I simply searched the word herbicide and crops and came up with these documents within PatBase. This is the profile that we'll be using, and when I select that, it will then build it out for me. And so here you have the ability to interact. This is something that's classic of VantagePoint and highly valued. I'm interested to know the Canadian documents that are in this data from company A, and I can look them and see their actual records themselves. I can then look at the information in terms of, oh, I don't know, we can go into the CPC information of the Canadian documents and so on. So it's interactive as well. And taking this into, excuse me, and taking this into Excel, it's a matter of going into the gear and then exporting out into Excel. So using this capability, it's really when you're looking for functionality, go to the gear for, as you can see, coloring, fonts, as well as adding notes. Now let's just try a little demonstration on building this. We're not going to use a template. We're going to start selecting fields, and we're going to filter to fields. So if I just go through ASCII and go into my ASCII field that I've identified, I'll select that. And I will take a group from that ASCII field, which will happen to be, and I'll go with the top 10 this time. And once we've established that, you'll see the columns start building. And you'll notice these are the companies in my data. So now we start building this out by adding columns. And the column addition is frankly this dialogue. So what we'd like to do, that trend line, for example, if we take that fact, typically trend lines are data information. So if I put filter to year, I'll be able to pick the first 5 years. I can increase that to 6 or 7 or whatever is necessary. And I'm going to have it relative to the 10 companies that I'm analyzing, and I'll just click OK. And you'll see that it will build out on that.
Yep.
We will just close this out and try again.
Yeah, you typed year with 2 E's, so just
user error. Good to see. And then let's add another column. So as you can see, it gave me the opportunity to show how flexible it is in terms of deleting and modifying and so forth. So let's look at the pie chart and decide on country information. And we'll go with publication country. We'll pick the first 5. So these are the top 5 within that field for publication country. And we want to have them compared, so we're going to go with uniform. And then we'll add another column. So for example, let's go with that bar chart. and we'll look for IPCs. And we'll open that up. And again, we'll be comparing the IPCs to each other within each of these companies that we're profiling, and add that information. And then, let's just add one more column just to give you a sense. Let's look at unique terms. This is interesting in that it's looking at the 5 unique terms that the companies have that the other companies do not have. And what were those terms? We'll just do the IPCs again, make it consistent, and open that up. And now you can begin to see, chemical areas, more biological areas, more chemical focus, more biological, and so forth. Interesting, just going down into these. So again, that's basically the way the profiles are built. I'm going to toggle back over to the deck and go into the next. So sub-categorization. Really, we've heard a lot of interest into when we rolled out our auto classifier and made it, gave you the ability to have categories within your classifications. There's always the question of I need more, and so we went back to the drawing table and we thought, okay, yeah, we can do this. We can add subcategories to this information. So how does that appear within the data? This is just a screenshot of a view of a record from the smart trainer. The training fields that are being used by the smart trainer and the auto classifier, and the basic classification. So there's two categories: mechanism and target plant. And then under mechanism are the subcategorizations. Under target plant, we have the subcategorizations of the plants. And so this is the implementation of it. And as you go through categorizing, these are competency levels, just to give you a sense of the number of documents and so forth that were needed to come up with that. To give you an idea of how it's built, we go into the manage record classification area, and I'll be demonstrating this too. So here's our classification herbicide, and here's the categories: mechanism and target. And then under mechanism, these are various mechanisms that are classified for different herbicides, how they affect plant growth. These are the plants that we're interested in tracking. And you'll notice being able to add subcategories, being able to arrange, and also being able to import if you needed to, or export this information. Noting at the bottom the ability to make things, add a disregard category for each area, as well as multiple selections for all areas. And so in this example, we've basically selected everything, and then the user would start the smart trainer. So I'm going to toggle back over and go into a data set that has not been classified yet, and just jump over to the summary sheet. And I'm going to go into analyze, and we'll look at the classification building capability. So if I select herbicide, you'll notice the various categories here, and then the subcategories. The ability to move them up and rearrange them, the ability to maybe add another category, like for example, rice, and have that incorporated, and so forth. I'd like to move that up, I don't, and so on. So this is the sense of just how one would build this out, and then I'm going to delete this just because I've been running this off and on during the day, and I'm going to close this out. So in the smart trainer, we have our elements in the smart trainer. You'll notice the recommendation that this is a target plant. Obviously, it's a soybean. and it's just the process of going through and going to the next. Um, this is actually talking about mechanisms and so forth. Just want to arrange this a little bit, and we'll go in and just add this to it and go on. So once you've established satisfactory with the level of classification, you can go in and tell the system, with these high levels of confidence, I am going to just start auto-classifying. It'll run through the process and it's finished. And you'll notice that if I close this out, everything has been classified to completion. And then I can look at this data. So if I go over and into the fields, a new field has been made, and I can open it up and begin to see the different elements together. So with mechanism and ALS and soybeans, we can look at the 128 documents. We can look at the assinees, for example, and just come down to the cleaned assignees, noting that I'm interested in company D or what have you, or Bosch, and then open up those records and read them. So this is just how we've implemented the subcategorization going on. Okay, so moving ahead, we'll go into the named entity recognition function. Now, keep in mind our AI that permeates throughout the system in terms of categorizations and so forth. We're adapting that to the named entity capability. But it's using a whole nother model. But not to get into the weeds, because I'm not really qualified. That's why I have Nels here. But uh, it's really using AI to discover new concepts. And it really it's interesting just playing around with it, what you find in the data relative to the words that you've asked to train the named entity recognition system with. So how it's implemented is basically based on these parameters. You have a list, and I'll illustrate how the list is implemented within the tool. That is used to look at sentences and the basic structure of the sentence using named entity recognition AI is used to then go into the rest of the data in the sentences and find the relative the information relative to the words. So you know, it'll find for example, canola variety, maize variety, canola hybrid, but then also because of the sentence structure, it finds corn variety, rice variety, and all these other various types of varieties and so forth. How it looks within the data and how it's set up. Here we have clicked on the train custom NER. And it brings you this dialogue where it's asking for the words that it'll be searching and training with. The words are being pulled off of a keyword list. Keyword lists sit within the interface in the lower right-hand corner. These are the keywords that have been added to this list. So it's basically a drop down and selecting the keyword list and then telling the system the free text field, which in this case are the English abstracts. Other things just to be aware of is the control that you have in terms of precision and recall. You can use the slider to gain higher precision, and you can repeatedly do this by virtue of the fact that this process ends up saving the trained NER model into a file, and you can repeat that process again, and you can change these levels of precision, change these levels of recall to adopt to basically using the same list. I mean, using the just repeating the same process and changing these sliders. The outcome appears like this. So the outcome is really, here are the list of terms that the system has isolated by the NER process, and the system has identified a group of terms, and I have isolated those group of terms here. And as we show in the demonstration, there'll be other uh, uh, words and so on. So it's a collection of terms, allowing the user to look through them and identify what is relevant to the words that were used in the process, and then isolate them. You'll notice maize variety, canola hybrid. Those were terms that were in the data that were used to search and that were identified. And then these others are really phrases that the user then identifies as being, interesting. For example, I search on maize and canola and I come up with cotton, come up with rice, I come up with lettuce and alfalfa and tomato and corn. Didn't search this at all in my query. All I searched was hybrid crop, but interested in maize varieties and so forth, and isolating and then discovering that my search results are also talking about these other varieties, or involve these other varieties. So it's an interesting process. So just toggle over. I'm going to then just take us into the summary table, and I have it filtered, so let's unfilter it. And I'm going to go to the NER list. I've already done this because running this on 3,000 documents, it took about 20 minutes last I checked, and we're improving that over as well. But there is a result here. In fact, I did it twice, applied the trained NER and actually came up with a second list. If I bring this up, and just bring this over. And here's my list here. So I'm going to pull it off of being pinned over here, and I'm just going to bring it over just to allow us to look at it. The training terms, here are our training terms. Here's what was identified. So, there are other elements in here, that might be of interest, but we're looking for varieties. And I've come up with, by just isolating them, these are the corn and so forth varieties. So now I just close this back and basically put this back to the area here and show you a little bit about the steps involved. If I go over to the train custom NER, open this up, you get this dialog box. You're able to pick the keyword list. And so here are my keyword lists, my plant keywords. Pick your free text field. In this case, we have English abstracts and so forth. Pick the English abstracts. And then here are the sliders. So just moderating the information and so forth, and click OK. And once you've done that, you end up with this result here. Okay, so that's that. Just toggling back over. Field history. Field history, again, is just, there's not macros. It's really just tracking fields as they're modified, changed, and so forth. If I toggle back over and go into my information over here on herbicides that I've classified, you'll notice that I can go to any field, right click, and ask for the field history, and it gives me basically all the fields and then the field history that I selected. One that I have here is inventors named cleaned. You'll notice that I did some removing duplicates in the patent world. You're always removing duplicate records, not always, but you're trying to focus on the invention. But in any event, so that's process here was recorded back on this date. And then I cleaned up the list, and I used a very aggressive fuzzy matching rule set to do list cleanup. And then I discovered in the process, and I just did that this morning, that some names were duplicated on the cleaned list. So I merged them and so on. So you have this history here that you then can record. And it really allows you to then, once you've adopted through the analysis, this history, these dates, these resources, and the notes, all of this can be exported to Excel, and you can start documenting the process that was involved in coming up with your final analysis. So it's a useful tool, and we hope that it's helpful in what you need to have done in that area of recording your and documenting things. So just a little more of just give you a sense of the look and feel of once it's exported into Excel. So each field turns out to be a sheet in Excel, and then the information is then recorded within the sheet or the table. Okay. So those are the major additions to VantagePoint version 16. The rest here are elements that we've really focused on in response to user feedback and so forth. So autosave. Within the options area, you can define how frequently you want your file to be saved. The default is 10. You can turn it off. I'll briefly talk about enhancements to list cleanup, something as you all are aware, we're noted for. Detail windows are now showing groups. This is quite interesting, and an additional capability to help you analyze your information. And the custom indicators, I don't know if you've had the opportunity. I highly recommend you explore the ability to build your indicators. We can now retain those values in a field in the field, so that's useful. And then talk briefly about how we've turned the download page from a web page to a dialog box. Improves searching within there to find your filter, to filter to different elements, thesauruses, scripts, and so forth. And then lastly, just to remind everybody, follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn. So options, here we go. Here's the options. Here's the autosave area. If I just jump over, I'm going to close this out and briefly just go into options, and you'll notice autosave, changing the time and so forth. So that's autosave. Resolving multi mismatches when you apply a thesaurus. Being able to, these are all the cleaning enhancements. Zooming inside of the cleaning pane. A lot of people, the font's very small. You're able to do that. You're able to change the font and so forth. You're now able to filter additional filtering. If you've cloned a field, you can actually filter down to the fields you've cloned. The fields that have been combined by your thesaurus, the fields that have been combined by manually by the user. Those are all additional filtering capabilities. And then saving the cleaning time with if you're into hotkeys, we offer the ability to assign hotkeys to most of the functions within the cleaning environment. And the one that we like to exemplify is just quickly being able to jump over to Wikipedia, LinkedIn, to be able to search a company or a named an individual and so forth. And then the detail window status. So some of us, we work with 3 or 4 detail windows open as we clean the data, and then we close that out. If we come back into the exact same environment using the exact same fuzzy matching rule set, like typically doing with cleaning assignees, then all those windows become available again. So all those windows, and that they've picked whatever field that you've populated the detail window with. So that's just a convenience. So I have just really quick touch on this. Looking at multi-matches, imagine bringing in data using a thesaurus in the process and ending up with items that are falling into two areas of the thesaurus, being able to check boxes and tell the system to only use one over the other, being able to rename as well, that capability, also being able to export and so forth. So this is something that again is the result of importing with involving a thesaurus in the in the cleaning process. If we go over just quickly illustrating the ability to go into change font, so in the options area as well as zoom, and you can also just hold down your control key and use, if you have a wheel on your mouse, you can wheel back and forth and it'll zoom in and out just by that. Just hold down your control key and you can see that. So that's just additional function that we added. And then the idea of groups are now visible in detail windows. So the mechanism actually had several groups, and I'm looking at the group names in this case. I've decided to discard, not look at these elements in my data. So being able to, when a field has a group, being able to look at the group names or the group items within the detail window. And then just statistics and using indicator values. Before, you could export this table out into Excel and keep the indicator values aligned with the various items that you had run your statistics on or had profiled. Now we actually, by clicking on this little list here, allows you to pull the information into a new field, my indicators, and then here's the company, or I should say the affiliations, the Scopus data, and then keeping the values. So quite useful in terms of using this in further analysis. And then just to round things out, the download page. The download page is really was a web page. In putting it into this dialog environment, you're able to search these various elements, look for notes and so forth. It's much more user friendly, and the capabilities have been greatly enhanced by doing that. So it's just a matter of looking at that information in a different way. So lastly, just we're on YouTube, at the VantagePoint. So that's, you can see our webinars, you can see our tips, you can see our past tech mining lectures by Alan Porter, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot here, a lot of history here, and you can check us out. And then finally, if you're not following us on LinkedIn, I recommend you do. Just start searching Search Technology Inc., and I believe you'll find us. Okay, so that's it. I thought we'd open it up for questions now, and I hope this was helpful.